by the atomic clock is 6:29 too.
Mine has 3:29.
Well, you're in a different time
I
zone.
clearly,
I think
apparently I'm in West Coast.
You're in the West Coast time. You're in San Francisco time.
Mr. Chair, you're good to go?
I'm good to go. I guess we'll start 30 seconds early. It's 6:29. I'll call to order the March 3rd, 2026 meeting of the Laconia Planning Board. Scott, would you take the roll?
Yes. In attendance this evening, we have Dave Olet, Mike Connor, Gary Dion, Luke McNeil, Jacob Roy, Amy Levisick, Rob Mora, Tyler Carmichael, and planning technician Scott Pelchat. I'll be taking minutes tonight as well.
Okay, thank you, Scott. You're recording secretary tonight. City staff in attendance is Rob Mora and Tyler Carmichael. I'll look for a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting. Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Oh, you can see him as a full member.
Oh,
right?
I'll seat you as a full member, okay. I guess we'll both, okay. So that's 5 in the affirmative. Thank you. Okay, next up is new application. So it's PB 2026-028, 191 and 193 Court Street. The applicant is proposing a boundary line adjustment between two adjacent lots. Is the application complete and ready for acceptance? I guess I'll look for a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
One more time.
Is that
All
a
in
question
favor?
or a vote?
All
All in favor.
Oh, sorry, all in favor?
Perfect.
Thank you. Is the applicant ready?
Hi,
Thank you.
my name's Carmen Lorenz, and I'm the executive director at the Laconia Area Community Land Trust, Lakes Region Community Developers, and we are the applicant. So we are just requesting a fairly straightforward boundary line adjustment. You're probably all familiar with the old Walters Market building, and there's a little house right next to it. The previous owners of Walters Market had expanded the building a few times, and so they went over the original boundary line between the two parcels. So we're trying to fix that so that it actually contains two separate parcels that contain one building each instead of the kind of messy situation that we inherited when we bought it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I think you have the plans from the surveyor, and I think we were able to get some updated plans in that showed the utilities like they asked for at TRC. Okay, great.
I wasn't sure, I wasn't certain that there was a small encroachment on the other boundary. So, what you're proposing makes sense. It's kind of skinny between the buildings there.
Very, yeah.
Yeah.
It is very tight in there.
But the surveyors did an awesome job.
They did the best they could with what they had to deal with. Thank you.
And I'll just put it to the board as well. So they did go to the zoning board of adjustment and get a variance for the boundary line because it was still going to be non-conforming. And also just another, we do have one waiver that we need to vote on tonight. It's waiver for 6.1 of the subdivision regulations for lot lines, just because they're not right angles.
Yeah.
Have to kind of move them around a bit to get around the buildings.
So it could have,
It's a very creative lot line.
yeah.
Well, on this tiny thing, they look pretty much right angles, but I'll
Yeah.
take your word for it
No.
that they're not. Okay,
There's a couple little curves in there.
okay.
Do you guys want to just vote on the waiver?
I think we should vote on the waiver
right now?
first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm looking
We
for,
can open it for public hearing first, and then we can do all that at the end.
okay.
Works
So I
too.
guess at this time we'll open it for
Thank
public
you.
hearing. Anybody like to speak and come up and talk for or against this application? Come on up. Seeing none, I'll close it at 6:33. And I guess we'd look for you guys for,
Yep, so as Robin already mentioned, they're just looking for a waiver for the proposed boundary line adjustment there because those lot lines are not entirely right angles. Moving on to the findings of fact there, the application is complete and consistent with state and city land use regulations. The zoning board of adjustment approved a variance for minimum lot size requirements at its October 20th, 2025 meeting. And the application and site plans were reviewed by the technical review committee at its February 17th, 2026 meeting. Their comments have been incorporated in the recommended conditions of approval, which are, plans must be revised and submitted to the planning department to include the following: an existing conditions plan, and to include utilities on the existing and proposed conditions plan. The applicant must provide the planning department any and all easement language for all required utility easements. The planning department must approve any and all easement language prior to recording at the Belknap County Registry of Deeds. The applicant must possess all required permits and approvals granted by federal, state, municipal boards, or agencies. All permits and approvals must be in place prior to the signing and recording of the final plans in Mylar. Should any permit or approval be revoked at any time during the project, all work must cease until a new permit or approval is obtained. Copies of all permits and approvals must be provided by the applicant to the planning department. 4 final plan sets and a Mylar must be submitted to, reviewed, and approved by the planning department. The Mylar plan and notice of action must be recorded at the Belknap County Registry of Deeds at the applicant's expense. And the project and all associated conditions must be completed by no later than March 3rd, 2032. If all conditions are not met, nor any extension application filed with the Laconia Planning Department by the completion date, this approval will be null and void.
Thank you.
So-
Any more discussion?
Yes, can Tyler review what that waiver citation is?
Yep, so that is for 6.1 lot designs of the subdivision regulations. And I wrote here, the proposed lots are not substantially at right angles due to the proximity and location of the existing buildings.
Okay, so I'd look for a waiver at this time then from subdivision regulations, 6.1 lot design, as we don't have right angles due to the proximity of the existing buildings.
I move we grant the waiver.
Second? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Waivers carried. Next, we'll move on to any more discussion on the application? I guess at this time, I'd look for a motion to approve the application.
Move to approve application PB 2026-028 for 191 and 193 Court Street with the findings of facts and the conditions of the approval presented at the staff report.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor? 5 in the affirmative. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have the zoning. Make sure I'm in the right place. We have the zoning ordinance amendment, 235-13 definitions, 235-41 residential accessory uses, 235-70 powers and duties of zoning board of adjustment, attachment 2 table of permitted uses. I guess at this time, we'll look for staff report.
Do you want me to go ahead? Sure. So, as you guys know, we've been working on short-term lodging for quite a while now. I believe you guys have already had 4 or 5 public hearings at this point. After we took your language and presented it to council, council had 2 changes. They also held a public hearing on it as well at their most recent meeting. The 2 changes that they're looking to make from the language that you sent them is they want to increase the date or the time frame for short-term lodging from 14 days to 28 days. So if you're renting a parcel for 27 days or less, it would be considered short-term lodging. The only other change that they recommended was that they remove, residential single-family from the permitted uses and from the special exception. So in other words, it would not be permitted in the residential single-family. City Council voted and approved that language and sent it back to you all to review and make a decision on.
And have a public hearing.
And have a public hearing. You have to
Okay.
have a public hearing again.
Okay. So I guess we'll look for some discussion among the board.
Yes, if I may.
You may.
I agree, and I actually was part of the call to strengthen this ordinance, and it came about from a situation in a residential area where someone purchased a home with the intent of not living there and renting it out, and this was in a residential area. You guys may be familiar with the Chapin Terrace situation. In any case, that the people that purchased that home had no intention of making it their primary residence. The new ordinance is clear that it states that anyone that's not in commercial resort or shorefront zoning would need to be a primary resident in order to short-term rent their property. So that puts the question of a hotel being put next to someone's home out of the question. They can only rent it for a maximum of 120 days. They need to it has to be their primary resident, and they need to prove that through having, their driver's license. It would be their primary residence. If they vote, they would vote from that address. And that kind of strengthens the ordinance. Also, in the new ordinance, there is language that requires anyone that does do short-term rental to report the statistics of that to the planning department. Because with any ordinance, enforcement is very important. So we can have the strongest ordinance there is, and if we don't have a mechanism to enforce it, what good is it? If I can drive my car 100 miles an hour down Elm Street, no one's gonna say anything, the ordinance is useless. So, with that said, I believe that we would be overstepping our powers if we were to ban anyone in a residential neighborhood from being able to short-term rent their property. I think if we simply remove that zoning restriction from the ordinance as it's written, that we would be able to make certain that we don't have situations where someone comes in and buys up a property and takes housing stock away from Laconia. And I just want to give an example. I'm familiar with a couple of properties on Pogus Park Road. They're lakefront properties. They're residentially zoned, not shorefront zoned. And in order for these folks to maintain the homes they've lived in for over 40 years, they need to short-term rent their properties. It's usually repeat folks that are renting. Their neighbors are all on board, because there's several neighbors that do it. And if they were not allowed to do that, they wouldn't be able to keep their home. Some of these homes are original from 40 years ago. I know one example where there's not a heating system in the home, it's a wood stove. And the taxes on that property are $25,000 a year. Well, on a fixed income, when you're like these people are, in order to be able to stay in their home, they short-term rent it during the summer for a couple, 3 weeks, and it pays their taxes. And I don't think we should be taking that right away from any property owners here in Laconia. So I'm all on board with the ordinance, strengthening it up the way it is. And I just don't feel that we have the right to tell someone that lives in a residential neighborhood, sorry, you cannot rent your property. They would still need a special exception, and it would have to be approved. And I think that is, that controls that property enough so that we don't have a situation where things get out of hand and someone's renting it constantly. If they own the home, they're gonna take pride in it and make sure that those that rent it follow the rules. So that's my take on it. I would love to hear what you folks think.
Should we go through all of these before we open the public hearing? Or should we open the public hearing for each one of these?
What do you mean?
You can open one public hearing for the entire.
Oh, that's right, never mind, because the next one's subdivision.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm sorry,
correct, that's
I'm
a
sorry.
separate thing.
Yeah,
I have a question for staff.
sure.
If we don't pass this proposed ordinance, the current rules apply still.
Yes.
So there are
Correct.
still some controls. The second question is, I thought the new language was going to contain a grandfather clause. Was
So-
I wrong about that?
So there's no grandfather clause that's required to be in the ordinance.
Right,
If
state
you're
law.
already pre-existing, or
That's what I mean.
that you'd automatically be grandfathered.
Yeah.
Before. the
Yep, so
date
if
of
you're
adoption.
already doing it now, or you have a permit right now,
Okay.
and we change this, you would already be pre-existing grandfather.
So no matter what we do, some of the problem areas still could remain problem areas.
Right, if somebody's
Okay.
gotten a permit already,
This isn't gonna fix that.
so, no,
Okay.
all those ones that are already doing that now, they would be
Okay.
allowed to continue.
Okay. I thought the audience might like to know that.
Yep.
Never needed it.
Yep.
It's not gonna undo any of that stuff.
Nope.
Okay.
So if somebody didn't have a permit, but they've been doing it right along, and then this passes, they're not gonna be grandfathered because they never held a permit.
So if you are able to get a permit now, and you submit and you get a permit, and then city council adopts this on the 9th, then you would have already applied for your permit and be
Grandfathered in.
grandfathered. So as long as you've got a permit prior to, then you would be grandfathered.
Does that solve yours? Do the people that you're aware of, are they already doing this?
No, because we've never enforced the need for a special exception.
But the neighborhood he's talking about is residential, so they'd apply for a variance and a permit, right? Is
They
what
would
you're
appro-
talking about.
they
And
would-
their primary residence is that.
They would apply for a special exception, yes.
So they would be able to do it in that limited time according to the new rules.
So is it their primary residence now?
Yes, it's their primary
If
residence.
they, all they have to do is apply for a permit now and they would be
Correct.
covered. Yep,
Correct.
yep.
But
this-
if we
this doesn't-
rewrite this ordinance and say we're gonna exclude residential zoned areas, then they would not be able to apply for a special exception. They
Correct.
would have to go through the ordinance process.
Right.
I mean, I don't think anybody on this board wants to drive anybody out of their house that, you know, if that's their means of income to pay their taxes, because we all know that shorefront property taxes are extremely high. But it sounds like, based on the conversation that we just had, if that person that you referenced or persons were to apply for a permit tomorrow, they would be covered unless I'm missing something.
Nope, you're right.
That's correct.
Yeah. If they didn't, then they'd have to apply for a variance once the ordinance is passed.
Any more discussion from the board?
I think I'd like to hear from the,
Yeah, I guess I'll
before
open, so at this time, I guess, it's 6:46, I'll open the public hearing, and I'll just say to everybody, well, let's try to limit it to 3 minutes. Looks like we have a full house, so we can get out of here before midnight. Thank you. Anybody willing, come on up and state your name and address?
Hello, good evening. My name's Carol Varney. I live at 58 Edgewater Ave in Ward 1. And I'm here to support, and more importantly, to encourage your support of the proposed language changes for this ordinance. Scott, can you pass these around, please? I wish these were cookies that I was bringing to you, but sadly, they are not cookies. They're fireworks remnants that rained down on my deck and on the roof of my 150-year-old house and barn. I live in a very small, congested, single-family residential neighborhood off of North Main Street. And these didn't all come from my house. Some of them came from my neighbors' yards. They were picking them up, too. And, but they did all come from the same place. And they came from they came down from 11 Lewis Street, which is a short-term rental that is landlocked and has like 10 to 13 abutters, depending on how you count them. So imagine a square lollipop with a driveway, and everybody's surrounding that property. So they came from the intoxicated guests that were partying there. And I share them with you tonight to show you the potential risk and disruption that can come from and has come from short-term rentals in single-family residential neighborhoods. There's another safety hazard I'd like to bring to your attention, and that is, it's common knowledge that it's a risk of sexual predators. And it's common knowledge that if you can go online and you can find out who's living in your neighborhood. And if you have young children, you know, specifically, you can find out if there's convicted sexual offenders. They're required to register, and it's a public record. And there's a reason why that registry was established. Anybody coming into a short-term rental, if you have a backyard that abuts a short-term rental, and there are families with young children that abut this rental that I'm talking about, you have no idea who's out in the backyard, next to the backyard your children are playing in. So think about it. How would you like your children or your grandchildren to be living under that risk? Because you know what? It could happen. When a real estate agent, it could happen to you the next time a real estate agent puts a for sale sign up if you live in one of these, in a neighborhood like this. If they put Airbnb potential in a listing, that rings dollar signs with people that are looking for adding a short-term rental to their portfolio. The out-of-state owner of 11 Lewis Street never wanted to live in Laconia. She never has. She only wanted to add it to her portfolio of, along with the short-term rental that she has over on Webster Lake in Franklin. And sadly, she took it away from families or retirees that really do want to live in Laconia. And we don't just want to make money off our city at the expense of neighbors who have to police their revolving door hotel. I've also heard that some people have commented and expressed concern about traveling nurses. What would happen to them? Where would they go? Well, traveling nurses will not be impacted by this change. Let me just put that to rest. Traveling nurses are not short-term renters as described by the proposed language. Traveling nurse contracts in New Hampshire and in general, and we have 2 traveling nurses that are living in our neighborhood. They typically range from 4 to 26 weeks, with the standard being 13 weeks. Think of it, they don't just come into a hospital and work for a weekend and then they need to get adjusted to it. Traveling nurses come here to work, they come here to sleep, and they come here to relax. They don't come for a weekend, they don't come for a week, they don't come for 2 weeks, and they don't come here to party. I want to remind you of the City of Laconia's zoning definition of residential single-family districts, and it reads, and I quote, "The residential single-family district shall be designed to establish and maintain attractive areas used solely for single-family residences, closely related supporting facilities, such as schools and churches." That describes our neighborhood to a T. We are within walking distance to 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, 1 public park, 1 church, and downtown. It was never intended to be a neighborhood for vacation rentals with a lot of transient traffic. There are other areas in the city of Laconia. This doesn't prohibit people from short-term rentals. We're not putting the kibosh on it. There are other areas that allow short-term rentals, and they are better suited for it, and that's where they belong. Please stop this invasion of short-term rentals in single-family residential neighborhoods. Please support this proposed language as passed by the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paula Heiser, and I've been in front of you a lot. So anyway, I have a short-term rental. It's also my primary residence, and I've owned my house since 2006. And in 2006, I bought the house. Everything was great, going through a divorce. Came back in 2010, and when we had that massive financial meltdown, my company was sold. And so all of a sudden, I found myself in a very different and difficult position. For me, the short-term rental, Airbnb specifically, has been a godsend because it allowed me to hold on to my house when things were dire. And over the years, I think I've had a very good relationship with all of my neighbors. I'm very picky about the people who stay at my house. I limit the number of people. I limit the number of cars. I follow all the rules. And I think that it's been good for my community in that I'm in walking distance to downtown Laconia. People go down there, they spend money, they shop, they go to the concerts, they ski. That's the type of people that I attract, not drug addicts, not people who are blowing off fireworks, because my neighbors wouldn't put up with that. I've had long-term rentals close to me who have been a real menace to society, and I put up with them for about 12 years of having to call the police on a constant basis. If I get a bad renter, they're gone in days. They get banned from the system, and they never come back. So there's some of your checks and balances. I really hope that you'll allow people like me who didn't buy from out of state, who are just trying to make sure that we can pay the taxes, pay the mortgage, and hang on to, for me, the last tangible investment that I have. It's my house, and I love it, and I love my community. I've been here for 20 years. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, I have a question.
I'm sorry.
How might the new regulations impact you?
Well, if I'm grandfathered, I'm not sure how much they'll actually,
Which zoning district do you live in?
I'm in residential, I'm on Gale Ave,
Oh, and you have an active permit?
yes.
It won't affect you at all.
Won't affect me at all, okay.
The day limit wouldn't apply either?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't rent it
She's
out
already-
full-time anyway.
She's already got the permit, so.
Well, I didn't know if the number of days rented was gonna negatively impact.
No, should already be grandfathered with the
Okay.
use.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Hi, I'm John Hildreth, Ward 1, and I just had a question for Rob. If in fact this passes as is, even in a residential zone, an owner occupied that does not have a permit, they can ask for a variance, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it doesn't lock them out.
Doug Robinson, Ward 5. Does anybody know what the current law is on fireworks? I bothered to look it up today just because she was here at the city council meeting as well. So I thought I'd look that up. Monday through Thursday in the city of Laconia, you can't light off a firework. It's against the law. Where's the enforcement? Right? I want to know where the enforcement is on any of this, right? Instead of attacking the little old lady who's trying to keep her home, the single wife who's trying to keep her home because she went through a bad circumstance, or even somebody like my buddy Mark back there who's just trying to get back on his feet from bad decisions early in his life. Who are you to take that away from them, right? When you don't enforce what's on the books already, that's a shame. And that's not on them, that's on you. That's on the police, right? How about you enforce what you have instead of adding more rules that are just feckless? Just to make yourselves feel good, we're gonna put all these rules in place. And you say you're gonna honor some agreement that happened, but you're not gonna put it in the ordinance. Let me ask you a question. I'll pay you for a hamburger on Tuesday. Wimpy's favorite saying from Popeye, right? There's no guarantee you're gonna get that money, and there's no guarantee you're gonna honor your word. You're not gonna be here in 6 years, 10 years.
No, but that's state law that guarantees that.
And
We don't have jurisdiction.
I get sick and I'm in a hospital for 6 months, right? Or I move down to Florida and I don't apply for my updated permit. Now I'm not grandfathered in because it lapsed.
So, just if you don't mind me, grandfathered use and non-conforming uses are already in the zoning ordinance. So if you have a use that is current and legal and you're using your property for that and the ordinance changes, that's already identified in the zoning ordinance under a different section.
Unless I don't reapply for the permit on time.
Nope. With this ordinance, it would do away with the permit, so there would be no more permit. So you'd be existing, now you don't have to pay the every 2-year fee for the permit.
No, now you're just gonna tax me on what income I earn.
Nope, we don't. This ordinance has nothing to do with how you're taxed.
Really, I thought you guys were gonna make the hotel and,
So in this ordinance, it says you have to provide a copy of your rooms and meals tax as required by the state of New Hampshire. The city is not doing a rooms and meals tax. The state requires people who are doing short-term lodging to have a rooms and meals tax license. So we're asking for them to provide us a copy of that.
Okay.
That's in the ordinance. it's not any additional tax, you're not getting any increased tax on your property. It's just, we're asking for a copy of the state requirement that you're licensed from the state.
All right. And why are you trying to ban it in rural residential? Like, I get that some people don't like it, but
Rural residential, it's not being proposed to be removed from that zoning district. In rural residential, it's by special exception for owner occupied.
which one's being removed?
So city council, when they made their amendment last time, they asked for it to be removed from residential single family.
Okay, residential single family. I misspoke.
Yep,
right?
so that's not my decision. That's ultimately city council. They
I get it.
They added that.
And I'm asking that we think about what you're really doing there, right? You're taking, what, a third of the housing stock out of that proposal for someone who's starting off trying to, if you're a single guy and you buy a 3-bedroom home with 2 baths and you say, you know what, I'm gonna do short-term rentals, I'm gonna live here and work here, but, I want an opportunity to make what my family had, and I haven't found the right partner yet to live with, right? That's a possibility, and you took that away from them because they bought a house in an area. I'm sorry, I just think this is all backwards. I ask that you look at, enforcing what you have instead of adding new.
When we're talking about short-term rentals, we're not talking about like having a roommate.
No, roomers is still permitted under the zoning ordinance. Roomers less than 3 is permitted by right in any residential district.
So.
But
so if
residential, I'd make more money as a single guy doing it for the summertime or doing it for the ski season. Like, I just, again, I'm asking you guys, please, enforce what you have. Don't put more on the books for restrictions. Stop taking people's rights away. That's all, right? We're a free country, and every time we turn around, someone tries to take our rights. And that's just one of the rights you guys are trying to take. And I don't care who the idea came from. I think it's a horrible idea. And again, I'll pay you on Tuesday for that hamburger today. I guess, rules change down the road, and you have nothing to back it up.
Good evening, Vanessa Saunders, Warren Street, Ward 5. Going to read. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. There's been some really strong language surrounding this issue, so I want to clarify how I see this discussion as a Laconia resident and what I do not believe it's about. In my view, this meeting is not about eliminating tourism and economy. It's about stripping rights, property rights. And property rights in every municipality operate within zoning frameworks. Here in Laconia, we regulate setbacks, height, density, and commercial uses in residential districts. These limitations are not viewed as tyranny. They are structure that protects neighborhoods. The way I see it, the question before you is narrower. At what point does a property operating primarily as a short-term lodging cease to function as a residence and begin functioning as lodging activity within a residential zone? As a realtor of more than 25 years, I am familiar with zoning regulations and short-term rentals. Zoning exists to distinguish use based on impact. When a property in a single-family zone is used primarily for transient occupancy with frequent turnover and off-site management, that is materially different from a primary residence where the owner occasionally hosts. Impact matters. Housing availability matters. Neighborhood stability matters. Infrastructure and enforcement capacity matter. Removing permitted by right status in a district is not automatically an outright ban. It means a use may require a higher level of review based on its impact. And classifying lodging activity under the state's meals and rooms framework is not a workaround of the tax cap. This should not be an all or nothing decision. It seems to me that a tiered approach here in Laconia would be the most practical way forward. Primary residents hosted STRs can remain permitted with safety and nuisance standards. Non-owner occupied STRs operating primarily as lodging in single-family zones can require a higher level of review, accountability, and enforcement. This isn't about live free. It's about defining where business activity belongs. Zoning exists so that freedom and predictability can coexist. If we abandon that distinction, we don't get more freedom, we get instability. Laconia can and should support tourism while preserving residential character. That balance depends on clear categories and consistent enforcement, not slogans. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Boards, Ward 6, Mayor of Laconia. I thank you all for the opportunity to speak tonight about the proposed ordinance changes. Short-term renters have become an essential part of the Lakes region. According to data from the New Hampshire Division of Travel and Tourism, visitor spending in the state exceeds $6 billion annually. The Lakes region is representing a significant share of that activity. Tourism supports more than 49,000 jobs throughout this entire state. Short-term rentals play a major role in this. It brings visitors to our area. It provides lodging capacity during peak seasons. Example, Bike Week. All the hotels are booked up. We need these short-term rentals in order to conduct Bike Week. Otherwise, people have to lodge 50 miles away, 100 miles away. It's ridiculous. It generates meals and rooms tax revenue, which comes back to the municipality as a percentage. If communities like ours, where tourism is not just a seasonal boost, but a year-round economic growth. We have Gunstock Mountain, people come to ski during the winter. Many of those renters use short-term rentals. For many people, short-term rentals are more than an economic statistic. They are a doorway into our community. We saw a few examples of that as well tonight. And I think Mr. Robinson said, if I want to buy a home here with the intention of maybe renting it out a few weeks during the summer, I should be allowed to do that no matter where I live in this city. I can speak from personal experience. Many years ago, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for short-term rentals. I used to rent the same spot 1 to 3 weeks every single year. I got to know the community, never once had a complaint. I actually became friends with all my neighbors. We hung out, we had barbecues together, we boated together, and I became a member of this community because of short-term rentals. The proposed ordinance changes raise serious concerns about property rights. When government begins to dictate how often a homeowner can use their own property, who can stay there, or what qualifies as an acceptable use, we cross the line from reasonable regulation to overreach. Short-term rentals are not a matter of impact tiers, as stated earlier. They are a matter of ownership. Once we start carving out exceptions based on who lives on site or how frequently a home is used, we are no longer talking about fairness or consistency. We are talking about restricting rights of private property owners. We all want safe, stable neighborhoods. We all want responsible property owners, but we can achieve those goals without stripping residents of their rights or damaging a vital part of our local community. Reasonable standards such as noise ordinances, parking requirements, safety codes are all appropriate, but blanket restrictions, arbitrary classifications, and excessive red tape do not strengthen our community at all. Short-term rentals help bring many of us here. They help sustain our businesses. They help keep our economy strong, and they help introduce new families to a place we all call home. I urge the board to consider the full impact of these proposed changes, economic, personal, and constitutional. I also have received a few phone calls about some potential litigation if this does proceed as written, so I just wanted to make you aware of that as well. Thank you.
Hi, Sally Holder, Ward 3. I think there's a piece of the population of Laconia that has not really been talked about, which are their children. We have schools in lots of different parts of our city, and a whole lot of kids walk to school. There's a difference between sending your child from your home to walk through the neighborhood where you know most of the people. Probably know them all, at least by sight. And I think what we're talking about here is we could have a situation where many homes, especially during bike week, where our kids are still in school, hey, they could be walking by many, many houses where we don't know anything about these people. And I think that would be a big change to our city. There are lots of buildings that are going on, being built at the Weirs. They'd be under a different classification, but we're talking about changing ownership, changing the number of people or where they come from every 28 days, right? Up to a certain limit. And I can't see the police turning around and following these kids. I don't have kids in school, but we've all heard of many things happening to them. They could be, walking by, having fun. All of a sudden, a dog that is not licensed in Laconia jumps out. I think it's really great the way that you've tightened up. You've brought a lot of clarity to if somebody does want to rent. There's an awful lot of, they could do a long-term rental instead of a short-term rental. I really think you're going in the wrong direction. I know this is a big discussion, but I think we ought to be asking who's living here all year? Who is paying who are paying the taxes? Most of us really didn't expect to choose a residence and live there for a lot of years, and then all of a sudden, your neighbor starts renting it out regularly. I chose not to live next to a motel, not to a big field where they're going to be partying all night. You did a great job on the noise. We talk about fireworks, and it isn't just fireworks. It's dogs, it's glass, it's damage to our lakes. I don't know what to throw, people just throw things in the lake. And at least if you're living in the community, you can try to keep your lakes safe and your streets safe. But when you've got a residential area and people have been there for years, when you walk by their house, you don't fear. When you walk by a house with 6 motorcycles, there's definitely a different feeling. I hope you'll stick with the way it's written. I think you did a great job. There's a lot of clarity, there's a lot of oversight, and the definitions of who's responsible for what. But let's preserve some single-family homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Preston Young here. I know some of you. Don't know some of you, so hi. I want to let you know.
Excuse me, sir, where do you live?
I live on 114 Layton Avenue in Laconia for 6 months out of actually 4 months out of the year. Costs $16,000 for those 4 months there, so that's about $4,000 a month, right? That I'm actually there. I think short-term rentals might help me out a little bit with that bill, right? But you never know. So the fact that I'm up here right now is just due to the fact I have no idea why this is even being discussed or brought forward. We're telling property owners what to do with their property. I think that's a little bit of a reach, especially for New Hampshire. I would also like to state, if we compare this to any other state that has a seasonal market like us, I have that right here, that would actually be something like Montana. And what they've seen through their STR is actually 5% raise in the valuation of the properties in the areas, which I think is good, right? If somebody wants to sell their house, make that go up. I think that's good. And we're talking about a lot of nuances here about some fireworks and things. I'm wondering if the cops were ever called. I think that's a rightful question, and if there was any damage done, I would figure they'd be arrested, but what do I know there? So I'm just completely blown away that we keep on messing with this. We keep on discussing it. This thing went through, I think it was 2019. Isn't that where this thing, STR, originally went through, right?
Yep.
Have there been many issues since that went forward? There have? Okay, such as?
Loud parties and noise.
Can the police do that? Can they get there?
I'm assuming that some of the neighbors I've heard did call the police.
Okay.
Repeatedly.
And did the police do anything?
I'm not sure. I'm not privy to that.
All right, so I mean, I've heard a lot of people, the not in my backyard stuff, I mean, I've heard that today. I think that's wild, I've been here my whole entire life, I would never say not in my backyard, really for anything. But I mean, I think if we're gonna set the precedent that we're gonna mess with STRs right now, we should probably start looking at some other things that are sort of similar to STRs, right? I mean, I think that that's, you know, something that we should look at too. So if we're worried about the problems that potential renters, right, short-term renters would be bringing to our community, what about sober houses? What about addiction recovery, warming shelters? Any of those? That's made our community look great from what I've seen, right? But once again, I've only been here my whole entire life. So I would urge you guys to just leave this thing alone, please. It is absolutely crazy that we're even discussing this right now, in my opinion. So, again.
Thank you.
Chris Fay, I'm in Ward 6, and I think what you've written, I agree with everything you've done. I think you've worked really hard to come up with something that fits for our community. I think that a residential area needs to be a residential area, as people have talked about, the schools and the churches and the children. And it's a place where people live and need to feel comfortable. And I think that what you've done does that. And you've made plans for options for people to work it through. And I think it's a good job, and I hope you will go ahead with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I'm Mark Burrell, I live in Ward 5. So I'm just gonna say this. Any of you remember Columbine? So when Columbine happened, there was a whole bunch of stuff in the paper about it. People, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this. And somebody in the state legislature said, how about we concentrate on the laws that we have instead of creating new ones that we can't control anyways? It's basically the same thing here. I've heard different talk tonight on different reasons. One of them is, this comes up almost every time something is argued. What's somebody gonna do about my children? Somebody's gonna come kidnap my child and rape my child. That's not always the case. Doesn't happen. I've been doing Airbnb for a long time. I stopped when COVID came. I put my, in snooze mode, and I took a roommate. I was at the first part of this whole thing when it first happened, when you guys decided to implement the law. I'm not against rules and regulations, okay? If you tell me I need a permit, if you tell me I need a fire extinguisher in my house, all that stuff, I have that stuff in my house. I have carbon monoxide, I have smoke detectors, I have a special parking lot for my guest at the time, all that stuff. I abided by all the rules, and here we are again, okay? In North Conway, a gentleman had a house, okay? It was used as Airbnb. Conway tried to stop him from doing that because it wasn't owner-occupied. It went to court. Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. It's in a residential neighborhood. The guy that owns it has the right to do Airbnb or Vrbo or any of these platforms in his house, whether he lives there or not, okay? Portsmouth, same person, owns a house over there. They tried the same thing. Supreme Court said the exact same thing. You cannot tell somebody what they can and cannot do in a residential neighborhood. If I own my house, okay, and as I said before, I've done Airbnb, I am a super host. I've never once had an issue, okay? As far as bikes, I had people from Canada drive down here on their motorcycles just to go to a concert. They spent 2 days in my house. Traveling nurses. I had a traveling nurse stay with me for 5 months. She's a great friend of mine. She lives down in Pennsylvania, okay? Whenever she comes to New Hampshire to work, she comes to my house, okay? So trying to limit Airbnbs and short-term rentals to outside of single-family residentials is wrong. It's government overreach. You do not have the right to do it. And that's court law already. The courts have already said you cannot do that, okay? So I would ask that you reconsider what you're gonna do. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Ashlyn Bean. I live on Academy Street, and I also own a home on Davis Place. I don't think it's fair that you're making homeowners jump through hoops with something that they worked so hard to own. Obviously, we all know the housing crisis. The houses are way too much money right now as it is, and if they or I choose to rent out my house, it shouldn't be in question like of if I should or shouldn't, I guess. And as the mayor said, short-term rentals support our city and many jobs. I don't know if you've ever worked in a restaurant industry or anything like that, but if we stop letting people come here for short-term rentals, waitresses are gonna have a winter through the whole year. It's not really fair for them either. For the people that are upset about predators and fireworks, you could easily stop short-term rentals and just get a terrible neighbor. I live on Academy Street. My neighbors are the worst, but that's what laws and the police are for. I don't get to tell my awful, unlawful neighbors that they can't live there. The point is, there are good people, there's bad people, there's respectful people and disrespectful people. Whether they're in a short-term rental or a year lease, you never know what you're gonna get. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's everyone doing? Brett Bellevue, Ward 5. As with any issue, you're going to hear good stories supporting both sides. But I believe the basis for the government, the decision makers, the lawmakers, you have to make laws that are geared toward benefiting your constituents, not benefiting everybody else that comes in and out. I've seen a lot of stuff, social media, heard things in here today. Government shouldn't be able to tell property owners what they can and can't do with their property, but that's what the city's based on. That's what zoning's based on. If we're gonna get away with that or do away with that idea, well, then I'm gonna get some donkeys and roosters and everything else in my yard. We have zoning things for a purpose. And part of what makes Laconia or any other town or city great are the different zoning districts that you have and what you're allowed to do in each one. If I move to a town and I want to retire and I want a quiet little community, I'm going to look for something in the single-family residential. If I want the nightlife and things like that, I'm going to look for something in the commercial resort. That's why you have the different zones. And the single-family residence is meant to create a neighborhood environment. That means a neighbor, which is someone that lives next to you that you know, hopefully on a long-term basis. Sure, you might have neighbors that you don't get along with, but you figure things out, whether you ignore them or you make some concessions going back and forth. I've seen some comments about the whole trying to regulate the short-term rentals, and they're not really commercial properties, but we're trying to treat them like commercial properties. The definition of commerce is the exchange of goods or services. And that's what short-term rentals, that's what long-term rentals are. It's like saying that a business isn't a business just because it's a small business or a large business. In my neighborhood, there's a sense of security because everybody has lived there. I think there have been 2 new families that have moved in the 18 years that I've been there. There's a sense of security because you know everybody. If something happens, the neighbors are coming out to the street. What's going on, you know? And they look out for each other. Sometimes I come home and something was in my yard, and some of the neighbors had cleaned it up for me. You learn to depend on the people, and that's the kind of thing that makes single-family residential neighborhoods cohesive. And you get that feeling. And like I said, it's a good thing that the city has the different zones, because this type of thing is allowed in the other zones. But the single-family residential, I feel, isn't meant for that. It is commerce, whether it's small scale, large scale, and we can sit here and say, you know, it's about enforcement, but there are a lot of things that enforcement can't cover. Sure, they should cover, but they can't. I had the privilege to sit here on the planning board for a little while, and we always had conditional things that we added into approvals. And those conditions weren't always followed. And when it would come down to it, hey, what about this condition that we put out for this approval? Why wasn't that followed? Well, we don't have anyone to enforce it. And it's always the same thing. But I just want to say, living in a single-family residential, we like it the way it is. You have that sense of security, because if something goes wrong on your property, normally you can ask the neighbors. And they'll tell you, oh, I saw someone going up the street, you know, and they had 3 bicycles in tow. It was one person or whatever, you know. Not saying that short-term rentals are all bad or are all good. You're gonna have some bad apples, you're gonna have some good ones. But at least I know when I go home who's next door to me. So if something happens, I know who to look for. So I'm just saying, I support the proposed changes, and just simply looking at things, like I said, you have good stories, bad stories, but it's the government's job to a certain degree to tell you what you can or can't do. And that's why the zones are there. That's why you can't have wildlife and farm animals in your yard, in the single family, and all that stuff. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
One last thing I wanted to say. So, people have been talking about the short-term rentals taking away from single-family homes, okay? In Laconia, where are you gonna find that? Go next to the saloon. What are they building? $500,000 condos. Every time you turn around in this town, somebody's building a condo. They're not building an affordable house for the average person that only makes $100,000 a year, okay? I paid $75,000 for my house. If you go on any real website and look at it, it's listed $200,000, and I haven't even done nothing to my house, okay? There is no way first-time home buyers can afford a $500,000 house, let alone $300,000 and $400,000 homes, okay? And as it was once said to me, your rights don't supersede my rights, just as my rights don't supersede yours.
Good evening. Thank you for your patience tonight. My name is Stephen Bogert. I'm a Ward 5 counselor, and I've lived in Ward 5 for over 23 years on the same street. I dealt with, in our neighborhoods, I've dealt with the shortest of short-term renters were the uninvited wood dwellers that dwelled in the woods, and to see the nastiness that came along with it. So temporary renting is not all what it's put up to be. Now, an RS in this town is the residential single, as you all know. Now, everybody wants to say tourism, tourism, tourism. But we do have another side of our town. It's called manufacturing. We have other jobs that are year-round jobs. And Those folks live in residential, single-family homes. They don't live along the lake. They don't look at having to short-term rent. They want to go home to their palace, and they want to sit in quiet and peace. They want to know that their neighbor is their neighbor. Now, I don't know about all of y'all, but when I go on vacation, I go to my neighbor on the left and I go to my neighbor on the right, and I say, I'm going on vacation. Would y'all watch my house? And they watch my house. They do things that neighbors do. Now, do you think I would go to the next door neighbor's short-term rental and say, oh, I'm going on vacation? Would you watch my house? Yeah, right. Right. So, in taking this out, people are saying it's taking their rights away. It's not taking anybody's rights away. You're given a variance. And yes, a variance is harder to get. And it should be in a residential single-family home development. It should be the hardest because you are changing the environment of the neighborhood. You're changing the cohesiveness of all the neighbors that know each other. You change that forever because once it's done forever. You can't go back. It's grandfathered in. So all your decisions you make tonight are when you do make it. Remember, there's a greater majority of people who live here year-round in residential single-family homes who did not ask to have a hotel next to them. I surely didn't even dream of that 23 years ago. Now, the other question is, one of them said, it'll increase your property like out in Montana, 5%. 5%. Now, I want to know which one of y'all would want to live next door to a short-term rental house. And you're going to pay 5% more for that privilege for it. I doubt any of you will. Just like the council when it sent it back over to you guys to review again for those changes. Now, you're able to rent it out for 30 to 29 days. So if you're here for the summer and you want to make some big bucks, rent it out for the month. You're on the lake, rent it out for the month. You can make some big bucks. But don't intrude on the backbone of Laconia, its neighborhoods, and its full-time, year-round residents with weekend warriors that disturb the neighborhood. I want to go home, and I want to know my wife is safe in there, my property is safe in there, and I am okay to sit in my driveway and have peace and quiet. And you know what that difference is? I lived in Florida for 30 years. The noise level, ambient noise level, was so high. And then when I moved here and sat in my driveway, I could hear the leaves rustle. I've never heard that before. And that was from the peace and tranquility of living in a residential single-family home area. So please think long and hard. The council thought long and hard, and that's why it's back here. So please think long and hard for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I enjoy these nice little neighborhoods in the single-family homes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with where Davis Place is, but it's a dead-end road. It's very quiet. You could be friends with your neighbors. But when I lived in my single-family home, my neighbor had domestic violence every day and was wielding a bat down the street. So I'm glad that there's these cute little family-oriented, residential areas. This is the point I was making, is not every neighbor is always a good neighbor. And so short-term rentals doesn't change if you get a good neighbor or not. Thanks.
Anyone else? Seeing none, it's 7:34.
Got one coming up.
Let me just yell.
I think he has to be on, so it's on the.
Come on.
There you go, perfect.
Wow, I feel like a star. Live free and die. My name's Gary Melville. A little bit about myself. I won the Small Business Award in 2018, Small Business Administration with the Washington, met all the important people like yourselves. And first thing, I want to thank you for your time. And I moved to this beautiful city back about 6 years ago. John's my great neighbor, we're good guys. Anyways, I come from a small town in Hull, Nantasket, and it's a booming place in the summer. Population goes about 3 times the size, maybe 4, and they make a lot of money. The restaurants, the boats, the shipping, they all make good money. I came up here, not in the idea of renting the property. I'm up here quite a bit. I'm a gun collector, and I love it up here because you guys are coming from Massachusetts. Oh, God, this place is awesome. So anyways, I'm up here. I'm one of those intruders from Massachusetts coming up here. The gentleman who had the house before I bought it was suggested to me about if you want to go somewhere, this place is beautiful. You're on the lake, rent it out. You know, I didn't know anything about this procedure. So I went and I hired a company at the lake and had them. We have a contract. And in the contract, it states if there's an issue, that people get, they have to leave immediately. We have a strict guideline, and the situation that we ran into is there's certain guidelines we had to do. So we do exactly what the town wants. The law you have into effect now works perfect, because don't add anything to it. But the positive part, and I want to tell you, because my business deals with a lot of marketing companies, a lot of tourist companies, and their big thing is they want to drive money, business to towns and cities to offset taxes and expenses. And yes, you're going to have a lot of headaches. You're going to have a lot of problems. But you have a police department, and you can always do something. You can always have a warning system. You can always give a ticket, a $500 ticket, for somebody who steps out of line, fireworks, et cetera, et cetera. I know myself, if I have to shovel out $500 because a knucklehead beside me was acting out of control, I'm going to throw the bum out myself. So what I'm trying to say is leave it the way it is. Keep doing what you've been doing. It works good with me. But if you want to do something, if anybody wants to do short-term rentals, because have them, like I do, we have a contract. The people sign, they all have background checks, go to a company like at the lake and have a company overlook your property. I have security cameras. I got neighbors around that keep an eye. That's old school anyways. Everybody keeps an eye on everybody's neighborhood. But I have people in Laconia that, because my place is beautiful, which it is, rent it themselves, and they just want to be on the lake. They enjoy the lake. Tourism is a big, big money thing. You got a beautiful city. You're fortunate because you have year-round attractions. Your summertime, you got all that stuff going on. All these businesses are making money, which helps the tax. I mean, if you stop this, if you stop this rental, you're gonna take funds away. So next thing you're gonna have to go to the voters and say, hey, we need a new fire engine, and we need police cars, and they're gonna have to go up in the taxes. Let people come in with money. Everybody I had came here, they spend a lot of money to stay here, and they don't stay in their houses, which I heard at the last meeting. They go out. They hardly ever in there. They come in, they sleep, they go out and enjoy the whole area. You have dog sled. I didn't even know you guys had dog sled things up here. You have fish things. You got more activities going on in this. Yeah, I'm proud. I mean, I come up here as much as I can, but unfortunately, I have to work. Some people don't have, that luxury. So leave it the way it is. Don't make it harder on the persons. I have a person that I'm not going to say. He worked hard. He's retired, and he says, Gary, I have some I have some relatives down in Texas. I want to go down and visit them. But I don't have enough money because my Social Security, I don't have money. I said, what about renting out? Can I do that? I said, well, yeah, go to a company, a responsible company, they'll overlook your property, back check everybody who's going in there, give them a few bucks out of it, you make some extra money, and make life easier. All I'm here to say is, you have a beautiful, beautiful city. This city is beautiful. You got a lot of things going on. Don't push people away. Bring them in. Show them what you have. Show them all the nice stuff you got going on here. Don't restrict this. And like I said when I came on, live free or die. I'm a veteran. I fought for freedom. You're telling the homeowner, oh, you can't do this, you can't do. I said, well, communism? Come on, give me a break. Do it right. If there's a problem, call the police, let them do their job. They're well trained to do it, and make everybody happy. And hey, let's make some money in this town. You guys got a beautiful town. I love to work with you guys. We can make a fortune. We got to bring the money in, right? Seriously. But thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And please, just leave it the way it is. Please. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
John Hildreth, Counselor Ward 1. I just want to let Mr. Melville know that he's grandfathered in. He doesn't have to worry. But there was a mention of $500 condos. We tried to manage all building in the city of Laconia. We can't tell a builder what he's going to get for his condos. But that $200,000 single-family home in a residential area, if that's turning into an Airbnb, that's taking stock away from potential new residents here. They may not be able to afford the $500,000 condo, but in a residential area, they can do this. And I think there's always an option for owners to get a variance in this zone. This is not the vast majority of the city of Laconia. This is residential neighborhoods, and to maintain that character, that safety, I think I ask you to go ahead, pass this as it's written, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Be real quick, I'll be real quick. So with the new, can you guys read that through one more time, what they're trying to put through, so they need to be primary residents? Is that what I heard going on this year?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So yes, if you're going for the special exception in those districts, they would need to be a primary residence. If you're in the commercial resort or shorefront residential, they do not have to be. It's permitted by right, no matter what.
Okay, but if it went through, then like somebody, they can't come buy something, do Airbnb or anything like that if they're not primary residents. They would not be able
In
to do
certain neighborhoods, yes.
If they're not primary residents now, they need a special exception.
Okay. Yeah, so I believe, what is it, 44 cents for every single student is what it costs, every dollar? 44 cents of every dollar goes to the school system, right? Now, why would we want to not allow people that are not primary residents here, because those are kids that aren't going to be going to the schools, those are kids, I don't get, all this does not really make sense to me, so I'd really like some of this dumbed down, if you will, because I don't even understand why we're going forward with this at all. I really don't.
Anybody else for the public hearing?
Just a quick couple of follow-ups. It was mentioned that you could have a bad neighbor. Yes, but at least you know who's there. Very important. And as far as the schools, I do believe our schools are under-enrolled at the moment. So that drives up the cost even more. So having more kids come to live here would embrace and help grow our city. It'll help grow our I've been respectful and to everybody else talking, so it seems that respect should be given the other way too. It's a two-way street. And as far as enforcement, How many of you drive the speed limit? You don't have to answer it. And 90% of the time, you get away with it. Maybe even 98% of the time, if you're lucky, you get away with it. But it doesn't make it right. And neither does having bad short-term rentals make it right. Just because the cops can't come and catch it. So please, please, think of your full-time residents that live in the RS zone. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm just gonna ask you the question from back here.
What's
How
the
many
question?
short-term rentals are in Laconia?
Yeah, otherwise it's gonna be a chaos. If people
Yeah.
ask some questions for
It needs to, so that, it's for the YouTube?
Yeah, okay, so, I don't care about being on YouTube. How many short-term rentals are in Laconia?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't say for sure.
100, 300, 400? So, we'll just say 500 short-term rentals. Okay? I'm just using 500 as a number. Out of them 500 short-term rentals, how many of them have you had complaints about? 10, 15, 20 out of 500? So if it's more than 500, I only know about Old North Main Street and a couple others. That's maybe 4 or 5 out of however many short-term rentals are in here. So you're gonna punish the rest of us because of a few bad people, okay? That's not right. I didn't do nothing. I don't deserve to have that done to me. Just like you didn't do nothing, you don't deserve to have that right done to you.
May I ask, do you already have
I
a
had-
permit?
No, I shut it down when COVID started.
Did-
Okay,
Would you
what I already said.
go
So,
back to get that now?
yes, I would. I've already said that I would abide by all the rules and regulations. When this happened before, Public Radio did an interview with me. One of the things that I said, okay, is when I have somebody come from Germany, wherever, okay, they ask me a good place to eat, 405 Pub and Grill, Patrick's, that's where they go. As somebody said earlier, they don't all stay in there, in the house. They're here to vacation, they're here to go out and do things, okay? They're spending money in our town, okay? When they spend money, 405 Pub and Grill makes money, he spends money. When they go to Patrick's, they make money, they spend money, okay? So the handful of bad people that a lot of these people are complaining about, you can't punish the rest of us for it. If you want to control it, have somebody control it. Have rules and regulations. But don't tell me I can't do it because I'm in a single-family residential and he doesn't want to have a hotel next to him. My house isn't a hotel. It's just a 2-bedroom house and I rent out one of my rooms. That's all it is. So you need to think about how many of those are here and how many bad apples have caused the problems. Eliminate the bad apples and keep the rest.
Given that, it's 7:47, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any more discussion among the board? What's our next step from here?
It is at the board's discretion of what they want to do. You can either amend it and recommend whatever amendment. You could decide to do nothing and kill it. You could decide to send it back to city council as they proposed. You have unlimited options of what you want to do. If you decide to make amendments to the proposed language from what city council has had, you would have to have another public hearing. So we'd have to schedule another public hearing for next month.
And probably have to have legal look at it also?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I'll speak to the proposed language that we're looking at that came to us from the city council. Some of you on the planning board, and probably most of the people in the audience, don't know that I've lived here all my life. a lot longer than some of the younger people, and that's cool. But I've been a renter, not a landlord, but a renter at Airbnbs for 15 years in New York State, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire. So I'm pretty familiar with the procedure, and I've rented it with family members, including children and grandchildren, and I've rented it with friends. And one of the key factors in my experience was being respectful of the neighbors. It was very important. In fact, one of the landlords that owns a condo in Saratoga Springs, New York, postponed booking us for 2 couples because he had some complaints from a new neighbor. They happened to be in a condo project up in Saratoga, and he said, "I know it's not you guys because you guys are really good, but a new neighbor bought a unit and complained about noise and things like that. So let me resolve things with the condo association." And apparently he did, because then he called back and said, "Okay, you're okay to come in August." So that was good. My experience locally was when one of the first houses that was, I think, rented out to Airbnb in my neighborhood, as a matter of fact, not real close to me, but not too far away either, rented it out. It was advertised by the owner, who lived in Boston, as Sleeps 20. And it was bike week, and they had about 20 people there. And the 2 neighbors on either side were totally livid. And they complained, and I said, I can appreciate that. I mean, they were loud, they were noisy all night long. I don't know if they called the police or not. I sure would have. They were back and forth across the property lines along the shorefront of Lake Opeechee. It was a bad experience. I heard bad stories about a rental house over on Gale Avenue. And I've heard about the one on, like, Chapin Terrace was one, and another one on Lewis Street. And there's a few out there. And to the person that spoke about the few bad apples, that's a problem. There's always a few bad apples in every setting, and they kind of ruin it for a lot of other people. And I think what we're trying to do here is have some reasonable limitations so that things don't go way out of hand. Whoever mentioned, I forget who it was, about the rules in Portsmouth and in Conway, I don't know what their rules were, thanks. I don't know whether or not they had no provisions for short-term rentals. That would be a mistake, because that's sure to go to court and lose. I think what we're trying to do here is have some reasonable limitations on that, and I think the proposed amendments that the City Council sent back to us are pretty reasonable. They do allow for short-term rentals in a lot of areas. Anything that's already been used as a short-term rental can continue to be a short-term rental. Those in the shorefront and the commercial resort districts can short-term rental by right. And I know there's at least 3 or 4 units at Village of Winnipesaukee that I've recommended friends that were coming up to stay there, because I knew those were available in the condos. And I assume the condo association approves of it, because if it didn't, that would put a damper on it right away. So the other areas in the city, other than single-family residential, would be looking for the variance from the zoning board, right?
Could be looking for special exception.
Special exception, thank you. And other than that, the single-family district would be limited to a single-family owner-occupied structure, and the limit on time is what, 120 days, was that?
Correct.
So, on the basis of that, I would be willing to give that a try and see how that works. This may not be the final thing we end up with long-term. We might have to change it again, but I think it's an improvement over the current rules that we have. Because if we don't approve this and send it back to the council for another public hearing and another decision on their part, then we're sticking with the rules that we have. There's still rules. So.
Is that a motion you're making?
I hadn't wrapped it up yet, but if you'd like me to stop talking and make a motion.
That would be
then I will.
great, because I'll second it.
All right, then.
I think there's more discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd like to just expand on that. What we tried to do, I believe, with this ordinance is give it strength and give it enforceability. That's the big thing, giving it enforceability. But what we did not want to do is restrict
an entire zone, can you tell me roughly what the percentage of RS zoning is in Laconia?
I can, actually. RS makes up 20.7% of the city of Laconia.
So we're telling 20% of our population that they would have to jump through hoops. They would not be allowed a special exception. They would need to go get a variance. And I just don't think that we need to, nor should, take that right away from 20% of our population. I think with the exception of excluding the RS zone from being able to do it, I think written as it is wonderful. It gives it some more teeth. It gives reportability back to the planning board. And with that, hopefully we can rule out and weed out the bad apples that are trying to take advantage of what we have available. So I am all for the new ordinance as it's written, with the exception of excluding 20% of our population from having the right to short-term their property. So, you know, I would be against keeping it exactly as it is, but I would be all for it with the way it is, but I would want to strike the, you can't do it in a residential, single-family neighborhood. They should have the right to go get a special exception, explain themselves why they need to do this, and follow the rules, and the rules need to be enforced.
Question?
Yeah.
So the special exception is called for under section 2, which would cover most of the other zones, RR1 and 2, RG, RA, urban, commercial, and commercial. You want to add single family to that district?
Yeah,
Because right now it's a carve-out.
Correct.
Okay.
So what we did is we removed single family.
Correct.
And
Okay.
I don't think we should single out 20% of our population and say you can't do it.
So you'd like to put it back in that
If
section?
that was back in this ordinance, I would be all for it, and I believe a lot of the folks here would agree with that.
I think we're about 50-50.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's not even a 50, it's more yes than no.
Any more discussion?
Can I speak to it?
Sure.
Thank you, everyone, for coming and sharing your thoughts tonight. I mean, buying your first home is one of the biggest decisions anyone makes, and buying the home where you're going to raise your family is probably the biggest decision that anyone's going to make. And for 20% of our families that made that decision, they decided to buy in a residential setting to reside there full-time with other people who chose to reside there full-time. I think that provides them with predictability, and I think it also has a stabilizing effect on the housing market of a community because you don't have as much transience, which I think secures the tax base, if at the cost of some marginal benefit from people who are renting short-term. I think issues are where reasonable people disagree, and so here we're kind of trying to thread the needle between the economic dynamism that short-term rentals provide and the stability that our residents want who live there and raise their families there. So to me, having 20% of our city designated for folks who want to live there with their neighbors is a reasonable percentage, because I think that allowing the rest of the zoning to have short-term rentals allows us to capture the vast majority of that economic dynamism, but at the same time protecting the neighborhood feel that a lot of people who live here and work here want. So I support the proposed language as is, with the understanding that this is an issue where reasonable people disagree.
Any other discussion? Do you want a motion?
I guess if we're at that point, I would like one.
We can still debate the motion.
Sure.
So I move that we approve the proposed language.
I would second that.
Okay. Discussion?
Looks like it's vote time.
It's time to vote.
Yep. I'm looking for,
So we have a motion on the floor to accept the, as written.
Mhm.
And that would eliminate the residential, single family,
correct.
and increase it from 14 days to 28 days, if
if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And that's the motion that's been made, it's been seconded.
Okay, so I'm looking for approval. Let's have a vote. All in favor? 4 against? 4 to 1. Thank you. Motion carries. That'll get forwarded now to the city council.
That'll go
Yep.
to the city council for the March 9th meeting.
Okay.
So anybody that wants to speak on that again will have the opportunity on March 9th at city council.
That's just useless because, you know, the city council's already against it. You know, this guy, he's against everything that walks and breathes, and it's not gonna change. Even if I put in for a variance, it's gonna get shot down. What's the point? The guy's
Which one's that? No, no.
So,
Just barely?
I'm glad I pulled up the existing condition report from master plan.
Yeah, that was.
I was impressed that that
Because
number was right
I was
there.
prepping for somebody to ask that question.
Yep. I'm surprised it didn't come up sooner.
That's why I pulled it up, because I thought for sure somebody was gonna start asking, but I wasn't wrong, somebody did ask.
Did you text him and ask him to ask you?
No, there was
I've
no
got one down
texting
the
that went
street.
back and
it was a
forth for
plant, yeah, it was a
Yeah.
During
plant.
the fishing derby,
Mike, ask me this question.
Laconia PD and Fish and Game were there full-time. There was 18 cars. They rode snowmobiles and four-wheelers all around to loop it.
Short-term rentals.
The guy
You know,
bought it, the guy
it's
bought
like
it 3
anything.
years ago.
You could have a short-term rental that it never had a problem. And it's all in how well you
Manage it.
vet your people that are coming in and renting.
He's,
As opposed to, are you just looking for the almighty dollar, or are you looking to keep your neighbors happy?
so,
These short-term rentals, they're very dependent on the current economic conditions. So if we have a bad recession and people stop going on vacations, then there's a huge decline in the amount of revenue that the state's gonna take in. Whereas if that was housing stock and people are living there full-time, it might be a little less on the margin, but it's more predictable and it's safer, so I'm kind of risk averse.
You know, all the housing stock that's been going up over the past 10 years has not been owner-occupied full-time.
So, Mr. Chair, just so you're aware, you do have 2 more items
That is
under
correct.
public hearing.
yep. So next up is the subdivision regulations amendment, 7-year exemption. It's a proposed amendment to the subdivision regulation to add new provisions related to the state's 7-year exemption. That includes defining active and substantial development, a substantial completion of the improvements as shown on the subdivision plat, and altering any other portions of the regulations that are impacted by those new provisions. I guess we'll look for the staff report on that?
Absolutely. So, and I'll kind of just give it for both of them because it's going to be the same for site plan review regulations. It's just I changed subdivision plat to site plan. So, but essentially to both of our regulations, what we're looking to do is add some language that is already guaranteed by state law, and to kind of define what that means, because state law provides an exemption for 7 years to approved developments, basically to protect developers from any changes to ordinances, regulations, and impact fee increases. With that, though, the state does give some leeway to define a couple terms, one of which is active and substantial development, and the other one is vesting, when something is substantially complete. We don't currently have definitions for that, and as you guys know, you've heard me read these a couple times in staff reports because we've been trying to add the language for every approval. If you don't have the language, it's just automatically granted. So, with that, we've added a 4.9 to the subdivision regulations, or proposed to add, which is for the 7-year exemption part. That basically is just stipulating when a development's going to achieve active and substantial development. For subdivision regulations, that includes making sure that all the preconditions of your approvals have been met, that the required site security has been posted with whatever department's requesting that, whether it's planning or fire or DPW, whoever's requiring some sort of escrow is being has already been deposited. The approved subdivision plat and the notice of decision have been recorded at the Registry of Deeds. The development must also remain in full compliance at that point in time with all public health regulations. The subdivision plat must also conform with the existing subdivision regulations and ordinances at the time you guys approve it, and it's recorded. And then the last thing there would be that site work and infrastructure improvements have commenced. So shovels in the ground, they're already starting to build stuff out. That would basically mean that that active and substantial development has started. A developer has 3 years to do that. Once they do that within the first 3 years, now that 7-year exemption kicks in fully. So for 4 years after that, they're protected still from any changes to the ordinances and regulations. So they have to meet that in order to carry out the remainder of their exemption. Once they do that, they have those 4 years then to achieve substantial completion of their project. And we propose that in order to achieve that, it must have first achieved active and substantial development. So everything that I talked about before has to have been achieved. That the required monumentation has been installed. So in other words, for subdivisions, they're creating new lots, right, or changing lots, they need to make sure that the monumentation's in the ground.
Every lot?
Every lot to be substantially completed. And then 100% of the site work and infrastructure has been installed or constructed. So if they're proposing roads.
All of those things have to be done in the first 3 years.
No, that would have to be done in the first 7 to be considered vested.
Okay.
Yep. Now, if they don't do that within the first 7 years, and there's changes to laws, those changes would then apply. So it just protects them for that 7 years. Once they've been vested at any point, they're now vested to the end.
Why don't you explain to them how this affects an applicant as they come in and needing an extension?
Yeah, so right now, essentially, right now, we've been doing the completion dates for 7 years because they're already guaranteed that by state law. Essentially, what can happen right now is, let's say you guys approve something, and in the first 3 years, an applicant is having trouble. Like, let's say there's an intermunicipal agreement that's needed. That takes a lot of time. So right now, under the current way things are written, it could be longer than 5 or 7 years to get some of those agreements at times. As long as certain actions are taken under this proposed language, they would be good, right? They would still, and we thought that was fair, that they would be protected under their original approval, because it's out of their control what happens between municipalities and some of these agreements, right? So essentially what this does is it kind of eliminates that need for applicants to have to keep coming back before the board and say, yeah, they're still working on this, you know, once this is approved, this is where we're at. We'd like to do this in the meantime, but, so it kind of like removes a lot of the administrative burden off of your shoulders. All those extensions that you guys have seen before would no longer come back to you. It's kind of where we're at with it. So.
There's a lot of these complex developments that are coming through now. I'm gonna reference Mountain Lake Village.
Right.
They had to jump through an astronomical amount of hoops. Not through the city of Laconia per se, but it's because their development crossed municipal boundaries. It was in Laconia and in Belmont. And in Laconia, they had to get, they were getting water and sewer, and then they needed PUC approval for certain things in Belmont because they were tying into city water, and they wanted to have city sewer, but they couldn't because they didn't have an agreement. And then they needed an intermunicipal agreement for how they're going to plow the roads, because now you had, they had to enter through Laconia, and they had to plow up through Belmont. So how we were working all those things out. And it went through such a long period of time of going to the city manager, city council, the Belmont Select Board, back and forth in this, working on this agreement, and then state laws changed. And now they're trying to come into compliance with Belmont because their ordinance changed over here, and it was just making this developer jump through all of these hoops, and then at the same time, he's gonna worry about coming back in here and get extensions, as this would kind of, you're working on it, we recognize you're working on it, you're okay, keep working on it, you've got. So that kind of alleviates some of the burden, at least from our end of them coming in to worry about, oh, is the city gonna shut me down? No.
This, and if I'm not mistaken, this mirrors state law.
Yes, this is pulled exactly out of state law. So this is how everybody should be doing it, and we should have been doing it. This is bringing our site plan and subdivision regulations into compliance with state law, as it should be. We didn't even have this in there. We've been adding it as conditions of approval. You've seen for the last 2 years now. This is just allows us to take that off the NOA, as now it's guaranteed because it's in the site plan subdivision regulations.
That's why there's no current language for you guys to review, because there is no current language, right? So this will be brand new to the regulations.
What happens with that, a development that hits that 7-year mark and they're not complete?
So if they hit that 7-year mark and they're not complete, at that point in time, there's a couple things. New regulations apply. So if zoning ordinances or your subdivision site plan regulations are changed, those new regulations then apply after 7 years.
So they would have to come in?
Can they apply for an extension?
Yes.
The
They
old
can.
rules would still apply.
No.
They
So they
would
could
not.
apply for an extension, but now in that extension,
Okay.
they're open for, they have to meet the new standards. So,
Okay, that doesn't.
Oh,
Okay.
if, you mean after the 7 years?
No. As 7 years are about to expire, they ask for an extension
Yes.
with the same rules.
Yes, so if they
Okay.
come in and
But if it's
it's,
after 7 years.
then the new regulations apply,
Okay.
correct. Yep.
Okay, that's good.
and a lot of that is also to protect us. I'll give an example of that. So, Lilac Valley, that was up on 106, 107, that came in. So that was approved however many years ago, and we didn't have anything in the regulations that said, oh, this is, you're vested, you're not. So the couple planning directors ago, they wrote a letter saying, yep, we're going to consider you vested, so you don't need to keep coming back to planning board. In all that time, the city had changed water and sewer in the area. So now they have these old plans that they're bringing in and moving forward with, but we have new water and sewer that they're supposed to be connecting to.
Oh, they didn't have service at the time?
No, they hadn't put in all the infrastructure. So the reality is they probably should have come back to change what they did, but because now they were vested, it was this whole, so we're trying to protect ourselves from that again of, hey, it's been so long, now you need to meet the current regulations and come in and make sure that we still have adequate supply and capacity to meet what you're trying to do.
Can we have one public hearing on both of these together?
Unfortunately not. I would recommend you have separate ones.
Okay.
And, yeah, because they're separate
They
documents.
both are exactly the same language-wise.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
One last question. So impact fees,
Yep.
they're good through that 7-year?
Yes, so that's the interesting thing. So it was 5 years, so this is interesting. It used to be a 5-year exemption under state law. This past year, the state changed it to a 7-year exemption, so the state increased it 2 years. But, yeah, essentially, what it says is for 7 years, they're protected. Even if they become vested, state law still allows us to increase the impact fees after 7 years. So let's say a project comes in, they're substantially complete, but they have a few other properties that they need to finish. When they come back in and submit their building permit, and it's after that 7-year mark, they would be at the new rate at the time they submit their building permit. So, but it gives them that 7-year window.
It's a pretty good window for impact fees.
It is.
Yes.
It
It's
is.
pretty,
It's pretty generous.
yeah, I'd like to
Yeah.
buy that hamburger that, what it cost 7 years ago.
Well, our impact fees are incrementally going up.
Yes.
Yes.
Each year, and so, and what's beneficial for a developer, so right now, if they come in and they get a development approved, their impact fees are locked at whatever year they were approved at. So as they keep going up annually on July 1st with the inflation,
Factor.
it keeps increasing each year. So any new development gets locked in at whatever rate that is for 7 years. So it is pretty beneficial.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion? So I
Open the
guess
public hearing.
at 8:12, I'll open the public hearing.
And this is on the subdivision.
Brett Belleville, Ward 5. I just want to say this kind of sounds like a no-brainer to me. Just trying to get in lockstep with what the state is doing cuts you down on possibility of litigation on the side and all that. And you're all doing a great job. And that's all I have to say. And you can ditto that comment for the next thing that's 7 years as well. Because I'm going to go home
You
then.
don't want to speak on the next public hearing?
What's the next? Oh, well, I just told him to copy that statement and put it in for the next one, so I can go.
You got it. We can do that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Rob, keep up the fire.
Seeing no other takers, at 8:13, I'll close the public hearing. I guess, any more discussion? Go ahead.
I move we approve the subdivision regulation amendment. as written and presented.
Do we have a second? Okay. Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Perfect.
So now we're on to
Site plan.
site plan review regulations amendment. Amendment to add the state's 7-year exemption in vesting requirements. Staff presentation?
Same thing I said before, this just applies to site plan. I mean, there was a couple changes for requirements, because like, obviously monumentation doesn't apply to all site plans, so there might be a couple changes in the definitions of active and substantial development, but it's along the same premise of, basically, if you want to achieve active and substantial development, all your pre-construction conditions have to be met, compliance with law, compliance with the, what was approved by you guys, site security, and site work has begun and infrastructure. And then as far as vesting goes, the only change in that is they have to meet active and substantial development, and 100% of the site work and infrastructure has been completed, and 50% of the required certificates of occupancy have been issued. So in other words, like, let's say you have you have a commercial site plan, you have 2 businesses you're proposing, you have to get an occupancy permit for at least one of those. Or if you have 20 units, you have to have an occupancy permit for at least 10 of them before you would be considered vested.
Or if you have 100 campsites, you have to have at least 50 of them.
Correct. So,
Okay.
that's it.
Discussion among the board?
And this mirrors state law as well?
Correct.
Ready for a
Public hearing?
I'll open the public hearing at 8:15.
Gabe?
Gabe, you want to speak?
Come on, Gabe, this is your chance.
Seeing no takers, I'll close the public hearing at 8:15. Any more discussion among the board? I think with this, same as the other one, and mirroring, state law, I think it's just cleaning things up.
Yeah,
Probably making you guys' lives a little easier.
it does.
All right, then I'll make the motion to approve this.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay. All in favor?
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
I guess we're up to the planning department update.
So I don't have too much of an update. We still have our posting closed for our administrative assistant position. We're doing interviews on Friday, so hopefully we'll have somebody hired in the next. We did not receive any bidders for our RFP for the Weir Stiff Bandstand, so we'll bring that back to City Council and see what they want to do with that. Whether they want to go back to bid again or whatever the will is. We'll do that.
You ever thought about looking to have the Hewitt build that?
They could.
Just a thought.
There are a lot of other options City Council could decide to do, so,
Okay.
Did you hear that?
open.
did.
Okay. Open. We had a busy month at TRC this month. We had 2 subdivisions come in, one on White Oaks Road and one on Pickerel Pond Road. You've probably seen on Facebook and in the newspaper today, the Electric Aggregation Committee started their community power. Lots of mixed reviews on that one. We've had about 40 phone calls downstairs asking questions this way or that way. So it's been very exciting.
A lot of confusion, especially with CPC and H being in the news,
Yeah.
with their rates going through the roof.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to Gabe that it might be nice for the Sun to write an article comparing the two, so people might get a better understanding of what that's all about.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that were concerned that called. I guess they were looking at the mailer. It came from,
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
They thought it was a scam. So there's been
But-
a lot of those phone calls.
Yeah. Just so you know, it's from Oklahoma because that's where Direct Energy, the company that's going to be supplying the electricity, is based out
I
of,
got
so that's
3.
why.
You got 3 of them?
One for my office.
Yeah.
And one for the 2 meters I have at home.
Oh.
Oh, there you go.
Although the 2 at home say you're not affected because you have a third-party provider.
Right.
But I'm thinking about my office jumping in because my average electric bill's $30 a month.
Well, I'll put $100 in an envelope, and
That'll
in
break the
August, when
bank.
the rates go up again,
Yeah.
you're gonna see over 23 cents a kilowatt. So,
Mm.
I mean, look what it did last August, so, hang on.
I guess
So-
there won't be air conditioning this summer.
I'm turning on my air conditioning, that's for sure. Anyways, that's really all I had for updates. Other than that, my report is almost exactly the same as last month. That's really all I've got.
Do we still have a couple of vacancies as alternates on the board?
I believe there are 3 vacancies on the planning board right now.
Correct.
I believe that the appointments committee for city council has been interviewing people.
Oh, good.
I don't know what their status is, but I think that's going to council on Monday.
We're hoping to, yes. We have more interviews tomorrow.
So,
Are you on the?
Yes, I'm on appointment.
so we could potentially have a full planning board, and that would be absolutely great.
That'll be a rarity, yeah?
Yeah.
Mike, you have more than what you need, right?
I believe we have enough.
Okay.
So,
So we don't have a surplus, we just
Well,
have.
we might have a surplus, actually, yeah.
Wow.
but
That's amazing.
either way, we could have a full planning
That's
board,
amazing.
and that would be excellent.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We don't have to make that last minute phone call and have somebody come from home.
Yeah, like we did that one meeting, and that was awful.
That happened once, yeah.
We had a full house.
Yep.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
A phone call was made, that's,
Yep. We were
Bruce
sweating
stepped up
bullets.
to the plate on that
Yeah.
one.
I guess we have, really, the only other thing is the 11.1?
Yep, the only other thing we had on there is, we had last month, 604 Endicott Street come before the planning board. They are appealing a portion of the approval to the zoning board of adjustment. And with that, Mitchell Group, we're suggesting that Mitchell Group represent, the planning board to the zoning board, to demonstrate that we did not make an error in our judgment. So with that, we need a motion by the board to allow Mitchell Group to represent the planning board. Staff cannot represent the planning board, as at the time of the initial approval, in 2023, I was not a staff member, I was actually on planning board. The waters are really muddy, so we had to hire a separate law firm to represent the zoning board.
Yeah, Mitchell Group couldn't represent both the zoning board and the planning board. It's a conflict, so at the end of the day, in speaking with the other attorney, that we were also not allowed as staff members to really muddy the waters when it comes to that as well, to keep things very separate. Even though I wasn't on the board, I helped you guys out a lot and was here for everything that went down. So the zoning board is going to be working with their own legal counsel on that case. We can help them with the others, so.
Probably better off anyway.
Yep.
Have some separation.
Yep.
I'll make that motion to have Mitchell Group represent us.
I'll second that.
All right. I move to authorize Mitchell Group, Mitchell Municipal Group to represent the planning board in all matters related to the board's decision on 604 Endicott Street North, and to write a letter to the Laconia Zoning Board of Adjustments defending the planning board's decision. Thank you.
Second?
First, second.
All in favor?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That's all we had, which was enough.
Wow,
That wasn't-
22. I thought it was gonna be longer.
It's not over yet till
I was
the
gonna
board
say,
adjourns.
we have 3 more public hearings now.
Well, I don't know. I've been on
Luckily,
this
it's just
board when
Gabe
we
in the
met
office,
until
or
at
in the
least 10
audience.
PM.
Oh, yeah.
Not much of a
We've had
talker.
couple, at least, yeah.
Do you have to extend when it goes that late?
We didn't in those days.
We do have a rule now,
We
in
do
our
have a
rules,
rule
that
now.
if we go, is it beyond 9
9.
o'clock, we have to vote to extend.
Depends on how long Charlie wants to talk.
Yeah,
'Cause
we've had some very long planning board meetings.
That weren't
Yes.
needed.
Yeah.
That didn't need
I
to
know
be
in
super
council
long.
we have to do the same.
I'm looking for a
It's over
motion
by
to
the
adjourn.
flag.
Motion made to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're done.
Perfect.
Caught we offline? Heading in that direction now.